Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome into the show. You're watching Philadelphia Eagles now. My name is Chase Sr., coming to you once again from the NFL Combine here in Indianapolis on Radio Row. Another loaded show coming your way, and here's what's coming up. The Philadelphia Eagles this week meeting with one of the top cornerbacks in this draft class, Aveion Terrell. We've talked a lot about him here on the show. Had an opportunity to interview him. We'll play that interview here on today's show. It's also been a heavy tight end week for the Eagles. We know that Dallas Goedert is set to be a free agent. There's only one tight end currently on the roster signed for next year for Philadelphia going into 2026, and that's E.J. Jenkins. So that position could be a point of emphasis for Howie Roseman and the scouting department. You're going to hear from Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman, and Eagles fans are going to love this. What do I mean by that? We're talking Eagles offensive football, ushering in this new era, and it's all coming up right now. Let's go. You think about some of the needs for this Eagles team going into 2026. Cornerback 2, opposite of Kenyon Mitchell and alongside Cooper DeJean. And also the tight end position, considering Dallas Goedert is hitting free agency. He's 31 years old, has a little bit of an injury history. It could be his last opportunity to cash in once he hits the free agency market, and he could outprice himself for Philadelphia's liking. So we're going to talk DBs and tight ends at the start of the show here, and let's begin with chopping it up, talking a little bit about Clemson cornerback Aveion Terrell. Meeting with the Eagles this week, it was his first formal meeting here for any team that he's met with at the NFL Combine. One of the top cornerbacks in this class. Will he last until 23rd overall when the Eagles are on the clock? We'll see. He's not going to run in Indianapolis tomorrow. He's going to wait for that to do that at his pro day. He is going to do some of the other testing drills. And if he runs fast at his pro day, I think that he could further skyrocket up draft boards. Of course, he's got the NFL bloodlines. His brother, A.J. Terrell, one of the top corners in the National Football League with the Atlanta Falcons. And here's what he said about his meeting with Philadelphia, and then we'll play that interview that I did with him where we had a few moments of back and forth.
Eagles? Yeah, that was the first team I met with. It was perfect. Love their organization. I love the way I love our meeting, and I love Philly for sure.
And in talking to some of these prospects, I know the Eagles had a down year in 2025. They still won the division. They still won double-digit games for the fourth year in a row. So the Eagles are perceived by a lot of these prospects as one of the top organizations in football, and Aveion Terrell knows that. Now, after he talked about that clip, which we just showed you, I asked him about that meeting, Kenyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, and here's what he had to relate to us. You had that formal meeting with the Eagles. How familiar are you with Kenyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, and what is it about their games that you like?
Yeah, just Kenyon Mitchell, a dog, somebody who was late in the rise, and then Cooper DeJean is somebody who was a slot who can do both. So just being able to meet with the Eagles and talk about that, talk about the inside, feel good.
That's a team that really prioritizes knocking the ball out, which is one of your strengths. How do you get good at that? Is it technique? Is it concentration? Can you break that down for me?
Yeah, it's just want. Like, you gotta want the ball, you gotta want to make the play. So I feel like that's all it is. It ain't no technique. It ain't something I plan to do. I just happen to do it. It's one.
Who are some of the other corners across the NFL other than your brother who you model your game after?
Big Duffy, J.C. Horn, and my brother.
Now, he is a little bit smaller. We'll see what the measurements are. He could be under 6 feet for sure. If that is the case, is he going to play inside? Is he going to play outside? He did say today he's comfortable either playing in the slot at that nickel spot or playing on the perimeter. What the Eagles need is, in my opinion, it's not on the inside. Cooper DeJean is one of the best players in football from that nickel spot as a Swiss Army knife. They'd look at Terrell, in my opinion, if they were interested, as an outside corner opposite of Kenyon Mitchell. I also love what Terrell had to say about his knack for making plays on the football. This is a guy who's so disruptive, and punching out the football with that peanut punch, it all comes down to want to. So he is a dog. He's very confident in his abilities. You look at his numbers in 2025. He had those 4.5 TFLs, so he can make some plays against the run. He plays a rugged physical style on top of running well with some of the top wide receivers across the country. He had 3 sacks on top of that this past season as well. 9 pass breakups. No picks. I don't put a lot of stock into that. What I love, though, he's a disruptive player who makes game-changing plays. 5 forced fumbles in 2025. And this has really been the MO for him throughout his college career. Allowed a completion rate of 56.5%, 3 touchdowns in coverage, 9 PBUs, those 0 picks, as I mentioned, a quarterback rating of 95.2. But going back to him just making game-changing plays, being very disruptive, 9 PBUs in 2025, 14 in 2024. So that is a combined 23 pass breakups the last 2 seasons. On top of that, 8 forced fumbles in the last 2 games. So that type of production in 26 games is why Aveion Terrell is looked at as one of the top corners in this draft class. Before we continue to push forward on today's show, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Who else on YouTube is giving you this type of coverage, talking about the birds every single day, year round? I don't think anybody is. Now, I've got a lot of respect for all the content creators and the podcasters and broadcasters, journalists, writers who cover the birds, but what we do here is very unique, so don't forget to lock us in, hit that subscribe button, join the movement as we push closer to 146,000 subscribers. On top of DBs, safeties, corners, let's talk some safeties here as well. Tight ends, Eagles meeting with a couple of tight ends this week. That makes sense given the status of Dallas Goedert, as I mentioned. So I sent out a couple of tweets because I was making my rounds, talking to a few tight end prospects. Texas tight end Jake Endries had a formal meeting with the Philadelphia Eagles. He's a versatile receiving threat at 6'4", 240. Dallas Goedert, of course, going to be a free agent. So tight end is a need for this Eagles ball club. Then there's Georgia tight end Oscar Delp. He had a formal meeting with the Eagles here at the Combine, too. He is 6'5", 245, had 20 catches for 261 yards and 1 touchdown in 2025. He's a good blocker, a fluid athlete. I think there's room for him to get better as a receiver. He even said it himself today. Everybody looks at me as a blocking tight end solely, but I think of myself as a pass-catching tight end. The drills will be important for him. Ohio State tight end Max Clare had a formal meeting with the Eagles here at the Combine, too, this week in Indy. More than 1,100 combined receiving yards the last 2 seasons. The list of tight ends that we just talked about, it did not include Kenyon Sadiq, a favorite for this Eagles fan base. And I know a lot of you watching the show right now might be wondering, Chase, what about Kenyon Sadiq? Has he met with the Eagles? He has not yet, but he did speak very highly of this Eagles organization and paid a compliment to Dallas Goedert as well with the season that he had in 2025 with those 11 touchdowns.
No, I don't believe I have yet. But obviously they do a great job. Dallas Goedert had a really good year this year, and they're a fun team to watch. So, it'd be awesome to play for them.
Among the things that Sadiq did talk about, the changing landscape and the changing world of tight ends. When I was growing up, a really good player for the Eagles was Chad Lewis, a tall tight end who is also really big and a blocker. But as time has progressed, as we've entered into this new era of offensive football, the chart as far as the weight average for tight ends drafted has gone down. And Kenyon Sadiq is a shorter player, excellent athlete, a good blocker, a good pass catcher, but he's a little bit smaller as compared to some other tight ends. I do think that athleticism is going to make up for the lack of height. Look at what Harold Fannin was able to do this past year for the Cleveland Browns. He did admit he's had some concentration issues with some of his drops, and let's talk more about that as you look at some of his numbers from his Oregon career. 51 catches for 560 yards, 11 yards per catch, 8 touchdowns, but those 6 drops in 2025. The highs are high. The drops are certainly frustrating. Some might also look at 560 receiving yards and say, if he's such a great player, why isn't the production higher? In that Oregon offense, this has been the case for Bo Nix, Dylan Gabriel, this past year for Dante Moore. They spread the ball around a lot, so there aren't crazy opportunities for players to put up insane production from a receiving yards standpoint. The 6 drops in 2025, a little bit alarming, but he only had 1 drop in 2024, of course, small sample size, 0 drops in 2023. And so I don't think it's a huge issue, certainly something to monitor, though. A question with Terrell and Sadiq. I know they are 2 favorites for a lot of you. I like them, too, depending on what the Eagles' plans are for Dallas Goedert. Will they last until the 23rd overall pick? We'll certainly see, and how they perform at the NFL Combine and their pro days in the lead up to the draft at the end of April could go a long way in determining where they go in the first round. But I think both players for sure bona fide first rounders. All right, coming up next here on the show, do you want to talk scheme? Do you want to talk offense? Do you want to talk about the nuances of what the Eagles are going to be doing on the offensive side of the rock in 2026? You don't want to miss that coming up just around the corner. But first, here from Radio Row in Indy, today's Philadelphia Eagles Now is made possible thanks to our friends at Harry's Razors. Think about this. Your phone is basically a supercomputer, right? I live on it, and that's just the reality of what I do in my professional career. Your car, if you're driving a Tesla, can sometimes park itself. Your headphones can cancel noise like magic. I was trying to wake up producer Chip this morning. He was knocked out because he was out late hanging out with head coaches and GMs around Indy. But your Razor, it's still flimsy, still overpriced. Don't be stuck in 2008. Make the switch to Harry's right now. This has been a game changer for me. It feels like an expensive shave, but it's not. Refills are still cheaper than the other guys. It's designed with progressive blades for less tug and pull. With Harry's Plus, you get a barbershop quality shave with German engineered blades. Each blade is honed at 3 different angles to cut hair cleanly at the root without tugging. Blade spacing optimized to glide smoothly and avoid clogging. It's like how Devontae Smith moves on the football field. Drugstore blades, though, they clog so fast, kind of like the running lanes for Saquon Barkley this year. I'm in my bag right now. Harry's owns their own world-class blade factory in Germany. No outsourcing, no middleman. That same facility has been perfecting blade making for over 100 years. Why pay $30 for refills when Harry's gives you better blades for a fraction of that? That's just simple logic and simple math. So if you don't love your shave, Harry's will make it right, no questions asked. Risk-free trial means there's zero downside to giving it a shot. So listen closely. For a limited time, our listeners can get the Harry's Plus trial set for only $10 at harrys.com/chat. I'm talking to everybody here in Indianapolis who's hearing this show. This set includes the all-new Harry's Plus razor, 1 refined 5-blade cartridge, a 2-ounce foaming shave gel, and a travel cover to protect your blades on the go. Just go to harrys.com/chat to claim this offer, and after you make your purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them that we sent you. All right, let's move forward here on the show. It's a really cool opportunity for me personally and us here at Chat Sports to go to events like the Super Bowl, to go to events like the NFL Combine, because it's almost like a job conference for a bunch of people across the National Football League. You look around and you see Adam Schefter walking around. You see Albert Breer. You see Ian Rappaport. You see agents. You see players. You see current and former coaches. And that leads to a great opportunity to chop it up with content creators, podcasters, other people in the media space. And it's really fun for me because I've dreamed of doing this since I was 5 years old. I've always wanted to talk about the NFL on a big stage. And here at Chat Sports on Eagles Now, we're reaching millions and millions of people every single month talking about the team that I grew up watching and idolizing as a kid in the Philadelphia area. And one of the things that I've talked about with people is this Eagles offense looking ahead to the 2026 season. And to me, to others, it's fascinating, this unit, going into next year. Can Jalen Hurts play in this offense? Can the offensive line bounce back? What does Howie Roseman do in free agency and in the draft? Can Landon Dickerson and Lane Johnson get healthy? How could this offense maximize the likes of A.J. Brown? Is he going to be on the team? Devontae Smith. What happens with Dallas Goedert? What happens with the overall scheme, right? And so when the Eagles made that move to hire Sean Mannion as their new offensive coordinator, it caught a lot of people by surprise. He was playing as recently as 2023. He has 2 years of coaching experience. He was an assistant on Matt LaFleur's staff in 2024, and then he was the quarterback's coach this past year. Now, he has a wealth of experience as a player and learning from some of the top offensive minds. And one thing that I've gathered at the Super Bowl, here at the Combine, is that a lot of people around the league think very highly of Sean Mannion. That includes Packers general manager Brian Gutekunst, one of the better GMs in the sport, and I've always had respect for how the Packers build their team from a roster building standpoint, but the coaches and the GMs that they are able to churn out. And this has been the case all throughout NFL history. Mike Holmgren, Andy Reid, John Schneider used to work in that front office, the coaches that they've been able to develop. And so when Brian Gutekunst talks about Sean Mannion in this manner, you have to come away very impressed and very excited about what Manning can bring this Eagles team in 2026.
Not shocked that that's happened that fast because of the way he works. He's a tireless worker, exceptionally bright. Usually when you bring in a young, really talented coach like that, you're kind of hoping to have him for a number of years, and that's unfortunate for us. But he's going to do a great job, and he's the ability to see the game through a quarterback's eyes because of his playing career, coming from a coaching family. I mean, there's just a lot to like there.
And I think that there are going to be some growing pains, right, given the inexperience of Sean Mannion. But I saw something crazy the other day that I think there are going to be between 15 and 20 new offensive coordinators for teams across the NFL this year. And a lot of those guys are also going to be first-time play callers, including for the defending Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks. I think this is different than 2023 with Brian Johnson and 2025 with Kevin Patullo. I did have an opportunity to ask General Manager Howie Roseman about the hiring of Sean Mannion because the Eagles cast a wide net. What's the benefit of that? What did Howie really like about Mannion? Here's what he had to say.
I think the more people you interview, just like when you go through this, when you watch a lot of players, it's easy to compare all those guys, And so for us, casting a wide net, being able to hear everyone's vision, have them articulate to us how it would fit our players, because it's always about our players. With Sean, it was just the system of play that he wanted to run, how he's going to articulate it, how he was going to do that with all of our players was really exciting. I think he's got a tremendous future, and we got to help him by bringing good players.
One thing that's become clear, being at the NFL Combine, is that the Eagles went into this search wanting to interview a bevy of candidates of different backgrounds. But I think all along they were very interested in bringing in a Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan type of offense to Philadelphia because it's an offense that works. It's an offense that the Eagles have gone up against and have had difficulties in defending. Look at what happened in the wild card round against the San Francisco 49ers. This is a scheme that is a dual threat type of scheme, right? And I don't mean that from the quarterback standpoint necessarily. I mean it from the foundational concepts of wanting to run the football and establish the run, operating play action off of that, and having an effective pass game that works off of the run game. And I think that'll become clear for you once you hear what Nick Sirianni said here.
Yeah, you always want to, make sure that when you're on the verge of hiring somebody or in a final evaluation portion, you're bringing a couple guys back in, you want to reach out to different guys and guys that they've worked with, guys that they've played with, guys that they've coached. That's what you would expect. That's what I do for you, and you go through a job interview. It's very similar, and so you're looking for common themes, and it was a common theme of everyone spoke very similar about Sean, and you can imagine that those were glowing, reviews, which is one of the reasons. Obviously, we hired him because we thought he was, we got to the phone call situations where we're kind of going through that, and everyone had great things to say about him, the person he is, the coach he is, the football mind that he is, and so really excited about that.
A question that many people have looking ahead to the 2026 season for the Eagles: can Jalen Hurts play in this complex Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, Matt LaFleur type of offense? It was a small sample size, but in 2025 when Jalen Hurts was under center, he had a passer rating of 113. And the people who I've talked to here in Indy, a little bit of a mixed bag. I was chopping it up with Brett Coleman, and he posed this question: is Jalen Hurts going to be comfortable operating from under center, turning his back to the defense, and then having to read the defense? I was speaking with John Middlecoff, and a couple of years ago, he was talking to a Niners player at the time, and he asked him, could Hurts run this offense? That Niners player kind of laughed. Other people do think that Hurts can play in this offense like Greg Cosell. Otherwise, the Eagles wouldn't have made this move. And here's what Howie Roseman had to say about the development and the growth of Jalen. One thing that we know, he's going to work his ass off to try to be really successful in this game.
Well, he's always continuing to improve, work ethic, looking for ways, incremental ways to get better. This system, we think, is going to be really good for him as well as a lot of our other players. He's always looking for a system of play, and we think that we have that. And so just really excited to get him back in the spring and get the reps and continue to learn the principles that Sean's looking to bring to our offense and go from there.
With the Eagles ushering in this new offensive system, one thing I've been talking about over the last few weeks, I think that Devontae Smith will go off in 2026. And I think that he can put up Jackson Smith and Jigba type of numbers. Now, is he going to get the types of targets that JSN was able to get this past year when he won Offensive Player of the Year and he led the NFL in receiving yards? Probably not, because this Eagles offensive unit is loaded. But what if the Eagles trade away A.J. Brown knowing that inside the building they think that Smitty can be a number one? As far as the usage, even if A.J. Brown is on the roster, I think that Sean Mannion can get very creative with where he puts Devontae Smith on the field, inside in the slot, at the X spot, the Z spot, in the backfield, like Clint Kubiak did with JSN. Devontae Smith, I think, is just as talented as JSN, if not more, and he still had 3 1,000-yard seasons in 5 years. But the game to JSM and the similarities there are very, very similar. And so we asked Nick Sirianni about this the other day, and he thinks that there is another level to Devontae Smith's game, and I completely agree because I think that he can be scary good this year.
No, I think he continually gets better. I think you saw him have a great year this year. And, you know, even when a guy prepares not to have as good a year, like, you're always looking at it like, is this arrow on the rise? Is this arrow on the fall? Like, and even if a guy doesn't have his best year, he still can be on the rise. Well, I think we saw Devontae have a great year, and I think you just continue to see him play better and better. And I think that's a tribute to who he is. Guys that are tough, that love football, that are smart football players, and are talented, have a tendency to reach their ceiling, and God willing. And I think that's what you're seeing. You're seeing him continue to get better. You're seeing him continue to do these things and make plays only that he can make on the football field. And so I just think you continue to see him on the rise, and excited about, you know, what he'll look like in this new offense that we'll have.
And I'm certainly very curious, what will this offense look like in 2026? After hearing what Nick Sirianni said, and we'll play that here in a moment, I think it's going to be a blend of Sean Mannion's vision, him learning under the likes and playing under the likes and working alongside the likes of Matt LaFleur, Sean McVay, Clint Kubiak, Kevin Stefanski, Grant Yadinsky, Dave Canales, and others, combined with what has worked for the Eagles and what Nick Sirianni prefers, because let's be real. I know 2023 and 2025 weren't great. Outside of that, the Eagles have been a very productive offense. They've had a lot of success. This is a team that's made it to 2 Super Bowls for a reason, and they've made it to 2 Super Bowls when they've had competent offensive coordinators. And so with what Sirianni said here, I'm looking forward to seeing that blend of offensive minds coming together.
Yeah, you know, again, there will be some things that has there's a lot of steps to take place before we know exactly what version of this offense is going to be. But obviously, you know, Sean comes from a family of coaches and things that he's done that we really respect, that we know is tough to defend. We know we've done a lot of good things here as well, as far as some of the things we've done that's hard to defend. So being able to sprinkle some of that in. And a lot will be, you know, you got to go through the process with your players to you know, get to all those answers again. And you're constantly going to try to get to it, you know, get to where you will be by the end of the season. But really, you know, it's always important at the end of the day that we're able to run the football, be able to do play action off of that, play physical, play with relentless effort, play with great detail, play together. Those will be all things that we're looking to do.
Bottom line here, I think this is great news for Eagles fans, and Eagles fans should be excited about the possibilities and the potential of this offensive unit in 2026 and beyond. And honestly, I'm looking forward to seeing Jalen Hurts get tested and challenged with this offense. I think he's needed it a little bit. For the last couple of years, a lot of Eagles fans, yours truly, we've been asking for the Eagles to have and introduce and implement a more modern day scheme, one that is more creative, more nuanced, that features more pre-snap motion and modern day elements. We're getting that this upcoming season. and hopefully this Eagles offensive unit will be very difficult to stop, paired with a defense that I still think is going to be extremely elite. All right, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. As always, thank you so much for supporting the content, watching the show. You're all the best. I love you. Go Birds.